Welcome to Season 2 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Join hosts Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country as they dive into the world of parks and recreation with a surprise guest each episode. Laughs, leadership, life. This is RecLess.
Okay, are we starting? This is 38, correct?
Yeah, 38, season 2, episode 15. It's on the calendar update.
Wait, what's 62?
Season 2.
62.
Did I hear 62? I heard 62.
No,
I heard season.
season 2. Look at your stupid calendar update.
Well, welcome to episode 38 of RecLess, a podcast where we're focusing on all things park and rec through three close friends from around the country. My name is Jay Tryon. I will be your host today.
Can we be honest? We're just trying to keep
always,
this shit together. Like, this is coming
trying
apart
to give an
at the
introduction is what we're trying to do. But if you just want to jump ahead and welcome everybody, you do that.
Nope.
I'm welcoming Shane Mize and Tom Venniro into today's episode. How you doing, guys?
It's a little salty today. Everybody's a little salty. It's Friday. It's Memorial Day weekend.
Salty.
We got most of us have Monday off, maybe a ceremony, so we should be in good spirits. Let's lighten up.
Should be.
I feel like today is going to get a little rowdy already, and we haven't even started yet.
Any guesses just with the name, Tom? JJJJ?
JJJJ. Do you?
No, I mean, I thought Gary Logan, just because isn't that what Nate calls him?
Yep. Yeah. Gary. Yep. That's what popped into my mind too.
That's funny.
But we're getting blown up by Gary in our Whitey and Fam chat, so I don't think it's him.
He's throwing us off the scent.
I like curveballs. Well, hey, listen, on a recent episode, Shane was the host and asked us a question about what is the perspective of us in our profession. And one of the things that Shane mentioned was, for a long time, and maybe still to this day, he was known as someone that started the YPN. So we've had a lot of conversations about the YPN and young professionals in general throughout a variety of episodes. And I think it'd be fair to say the three of us would continue to push the YPN as much as we can. We've put a lot of time and energy into helping grow young professionals and provide a platform for them.
Sure. Even when we're not involved, we're still looking at it. We're still always
100%
worried about it, making sure it's doing a good job. Always. Yeah.
And I think that will be forever. I mean, I've been out of it for many years. You guys have both been out of it for many years, but we continue to be a part of it as an outsider to a way to make sure that it's still strong and make sure that young professionals know there's platforms out there that are available to them. So my question for you today, if there was just literally one piece of advice that you could give a young professional today, you got a 25-year-old sitting in your office, or you get a phone call from a 25-year-old that just started their first role with Park and Rec, and what would that one thing be that you'd want to tell them in all your years that you've been involved in some capacity with young professionals?
Just one thing.
One thing. That's it. Hey, you got 30 seconds to be on a call with someone.
I can't do two.
Nope. You are not allowed. I'm telling you, this is going to be an interesting episode because I'm gonna make sure we stick to the rules. And it's just one today.
Well, I'm still gonna say two things, but I'm not gonna answer your question with two answers.
We're gonna edit out one of them.
I just wanted to start with, I was speaking of giving back or being a part and watching from afar. Cassie Paddock, the current chair, had asked a bunch of us as part of that, that legacy group of past YPN chairs. She reached out at the beginning of her term to see if we would want to be a part of their e-meetings, their monthly e-meetings, and pick a topic. And so just this past Tuesday, I signed on a while back to be a part of that. And so, yeah, it was great, just being able to see what they're up to, get some of the updates. And I believe the topic, well, I don't believe the topic was generational differences in the workplace.
And you don't even know what it was.
Yeah, it was 2 days ago, but hey, it is great what they're doing now. And I gave them a lot of kudos for continuing on doing a lot more than we had the capabilities of back when we were there. So they do a great job. And Jay, I have a couple pieces of advice, but I'm just going to hold it to the 30 seconds, like you said, just one. And that would be to take risks, take chances in their role. So by that, just to expand on that, I mean, you get into a role, you generally get handed some responsibilities. Let's say your initial role as a programmer. I'm not sure that's always going to be applicable because you might have whatever the park side or some administrative side. But let's just say as a programmer, go out there, find programs that the community wants, ask people what they want, and bring some of your own flavor into it. And always ask for more. Don't necessarily just go into it and saying, hey, I oversee lacrosse events and the youth basketball league, right? No, what had helped me along the way was going to my director, going into her office every time our program submissions were due and saying, hey, here's what I'm looking to put out there for the community, and how do you feel about it? And 50% of them, whatever the percentage was, were maybe some new programs to the community, and having the support, of course, of that director to go forward with some of those, those chances that you were taking was obviously monumental for me as well, because I always had that support, and it brought a lot of successes to me and to the departments that I serve. So, take those chances and want more.
I like it. I agree.
I agree as well. It's kind of what I was thinking. I was talking to a young professional this week about a job interview. When I think of anxiousness and anxiety, I think about this study I heard about one time where they studied wolves, and wolves have the exact same characteristics we experience when we're anxious. They start to narrow their focus. They start to zero in on whatever they're fixing to kill or attack or do whatever they're going to do. And that promotes them or prompts them to move forward at the right opportune moment and seize whatever opportunity they have in front of them. They have no anxiety. And the study was anxiety is a mechanism of us fighting one of those anxious moments. So when our focus is starting to narrow, but we're worrying, oh, what happens if I don't get this job, or if I don't get this, or if I don't do a very good job presenting, what's going to happen at NRPA or whatever if I fall on my face the first time I present. And so those moments where we start to pull back our narrowing of focus, where we start to pull back the moments that our body is evolutionarily trying to get us in the best situation possible to take advantage of the opportunity. A wolf doesn't worry about the 3 wolf cubs, and if it doesn't attack and something happens, what do these 3 little wolf cubs do without its mom? It just attacks, right? Now, it obviously has to assess the situation if it took damage, and it's got to figure that out afterwards. And that's what we should do, right? Like, if you fall on your face and it doesn't go well, if you interview for a job and you don't get it, assess what you did right or wrong, learn from it. But wolves have almost no anxiety. And I was telling this young professional that, I was like, this is your opportunity. Like, take advantage of those nervous moments in your body where you start to only focus on this job. You're starting to get ready for this interview, research. Don't think about what happens if you don't get it. Don't think about what happens if you're embarrassed. And I think the YPN is a starter set for your whole career. What you do in your time as a young professional is a great opportunity to test your hypotheses of your career. And I honestly believe it is what you make of it, both your career and your time as a young professional. And if you just go out there and fearlessly pursue the things you want, and I think all of us at times in our career have done that, and we've been able to show through some really cool things that we've gotten to do to not only impact our career and people we care about, but actually the industry, that we just absolutely refused to take no. We weren't afraid of what was going to happen if it didn't work out. We saw opportunities and we just went after them. And I think the young professional networks, both at the state and the national level, provide you an opportunity to work that muscle memory at a much younger age than you had them when you didn't have that. Your opportunity to lead. Now you don't have to lead at your state conference like Tom did at a very early age. You can lead at the YPN first. You can lead at your local. You can be whatever award committee that they have at a national level or even a state level. You can do that version of that at a young professional YPN type level. It is an incubator of sorts for your career, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to create really good muscle memory in what you're going after later, and you'll really benefit from that when you're in your mid 30s and 40s and 50s, and you've done 3 or 4 of these things where you've put yourself through the ringer and you've come out the other side, and you know a little bit more about who you are on the other side of that interview, that presentation at a conference, that failure, whatever it was, the event or whatever. So I think it's a really cool time in your career to be a young professional, and there's more opportunities now for them than there ever was before. Pretty cool.
Real quick, it was great, and I just want to add, not being afraid to fall, right? Not being afraid to fall and fail is a big part of that as well. And if we were really trying to hold to 30 seconds, Shane failed miserably.
Big time.
But I wasn't afraid of failing.
Yeah, also, some of us are more like wolves than others. For example, Shane's ability to grow facial hair and the fact that he only eats meat.
Right.
True story.
That's right. And,
So
yeah.
At the end of what you said, Shane, kind of piggybacks into what I was going to get into, is you talked about there's more opportunities for young professionals now than there might have been before. The one thing I would say, if I'm talking to someone, when I do talk to someone, this is what I say, is just get involved, be more involved, be as involved as you can. And I don't necessarily just mean with the YPN or with a network, but also in your agency. Do not be, and it kind of ties into what Tom said too, is like, don't be afraid.
Combined our names.
Sham.
Do not be afraid to ask to be on a committee with your agency, to join a group. And I remember, I did that many years ago. We were going through accreditation, and it's like, listen, I want to learn about this. I want to be involved in it. And I had nothing to do with it, but I want to be on that team so that I can learn about that process. So, if your agency is going through a master plan, if your agency is going through accreditation, if your agency is building a new park and they're a committee or a team coming on that, like, ask to be a part of that. I highly doubt good leadership is going to say no. We don't want more people to assist and share knowledge on that. And that's only going to help you in the long run. So be more involved. Really quickly, before we get to the guesses for the guests, Tom, you said something at the beginning about how the current YPN has more than we used to have. And it totally had a flashback memory. Remember when we used to have to call in?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Zoom meetings. Everyone can see each other on Zoom. I mean, back when we were the chairs and we started this thing and we were leading meetings, it was a 1-800 number. You had to dial in, and there was a 10-minute, maybe 15-minute roll call because everyone's trying to talk over one another. And it was just like,
you have to go East Coast to West Coast. All right,
we had all the time zones.
Yeah, if you're from the East Coast time. So at least it wasn't 40 people trying to talk over once. It was 10 or whatever.
Yeah, you called up by region. What did Anthony Iraqi post and comment on Nate Hiramillo's LinkedIn? It was something about, what was it? Freeconferencecalls.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, that when you said
true.
they have more than we used to have, it's like, man, that's the first thing I thought of. But okay, enough with that. Today's guest, we're going to do a transition because we're already a little bit behind where I wanted to be. But hey, it's a great conversation and I love it. And I'm excited for today's guest. But to tap into the theme that we were just discussing, today's guest is one of the original 30 under 30 winners in 2021.
Do we have a magazine? The magazine.
Cheater. They recently graduated from Clemson with a master's degree where they pursued youth development leadership. Okay. In addition, our guest developed.
AJ.
That's what I was thinking when I saw the JJJJ.
I got it.
You got it.
Ah, wow. 2 clues in.
That was very quick. I'm going to just go through some more of the clues.
She deserves a full introduction.
I think there's some great accolades that I wanted to state, but hey, man, you won. Our guests developed the first young professional network for their state association. And now that you've already said the name, they reside in Virginia. In addition to the state young professional network, they were the chair for the association's Leadership Development Institute. They were named one of Southern Virginia's Chamber of Commerce's 40 under 40 for the next generation of leadership recipients in 2023.
Very cool.
In 2023, they were also the Leadership Development Network chair. So they were YPN chair, they were for their state, and now then they were the NRPA Leadership Development Network chair. So you've said it. Today's guest is the Therapeutic Recreation Coordinator for Henrico Park and Recreation in the state of Virginia. Please welcome AJ McCage.
Hi, folks. Nice to
What's
be
up?
here.
How you doing?
Welcome.
Living the dream, just
Yeah.
chilling with y'all.
Yeah,
That might have
awesome.
been the earliest correct guess
Yeah.
we have had.
Well, I
So-
appreciate it. Thank you.
Pretty good.
I was struggling to try to change my name. I was like, oh my gosh, Jay told me to change my name. How the hell do I change this on Zoom before I log in? So, yes, now we're here.
Love it. And someone
Welcome.
that's
Welcome.
been mentioned on the podcast before
Yeah.
she's been here multiple times, I believe. I think someone had you at their table, and I think Haley mentioned you with your work in the how you just kind of shot into our orbit with your time in the
Thank you.
admin. I think it was admin or leadership. Yeah, leadership network. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I want to kind of kick off the question with, we just talked about how we would approach current YPs. We've talked about it in previous episodes, how it's helped our career, but I want to ask you, like, how has being involved with young professional networks and then also chairing the leadership development network for NRPA, how had that helped you grow in your career and where you are today?
Let's see. Well, and I also appreciate y'all's answers too when you first started the conversation about the piece of advice, because I thought I was going to say something similar if asked. And
You were going to go with the wolf? The wolf?
The
model?
wolf,
no,
yeah, the
I'm not
analogy.
a wolf.
Different animal.
I'm more of a turtle person, so I'm, a little bit more gentle, but
Dane walks at the pace of a turtle, if you ever walk with him.
That's right.
no, I to that initial question, I think I would have said challenge the why, but to be respectful in the process of understanding it. But the involvement with YPN on a state level and then LDN, I think that was completely different. When I had got into the chair position for LDN, I didn't really know what NRPA was about. I had just been introduced to it right before the 30 under 30. I had met Haley and Michael and like just very Addie Weaver, small introductions of things. And I didn't really know what I was signing up for. And then I think that showed in my mentality before I started, because I was like, oh, I'm just a programmer. I don't have the experience of these people on these calls. And how am I supposed to lead a network where all of these people are at different levels? And I remember talking to Chris Nunes about it because he kind of picked me up as a mentee over that period of time. And he was just telling me to trust in my ability level to where I've gotten. And while I may not be somebody that's in a more defined leadership role, the knowledge and the skill set that I do have got me to a point that I should be proud of. LDN, incredible experience. Didn't know what the hell I was doing at first, but I loved every moment of that uncomfortability with it, because by the end of it, I was killing it. I was like, this is my show. Like, I got this. And then when we went to do the first, it wasn't last year, it was the one in Dallas. I was the network host during the NRPA conference in Dallas. And I loved every moment of doing it in person, but I wouldn't have got there if I didn't go through that uncomfortableness in the beginning. But yeah, so then we developed YPN, and it wasn't just me, it was a team of awesome professionals from Virginia, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had the experience of Katie Mack, we had Emmy, we had Derek, we had Mark, we had a couple of people that were just core people that said, I think we're kind of lacking something. And the elephant in the room is saying something to do with young professionals. But of course, all of the older people are like, wait a minute, they're going to start a club for young people. And so, but yeah, so the experience was vastly different, but I had way more confidence going into that because of how uncomfortable I was with LDN.
That's cool. The YPN origin story is very similar. I mean, I went to Seattle. I was with the city of Fort Worth. We were up for the gold medal. They thought we were going to win. We were up 4 times in my 7 years there, but this year my director was pretty sure that we were going to win. Newsflash, we did not. But he was willing to send as many people that wanted to go volunteer or teach or present or something. And so I volunteered, did some volunteer work, stuffed some bags, went to Seattle, my very first conference. I'm a young professional in a spot where I haven't been in this industry very long. And I see that there's an ethnic minority society and a armed forces branch, and there's an aquatic branch and an academic branch, and there's all these different regions, north, south, east, west, and there's more than that. Actually, there was Midwest and Southwest and all these different regions. There was just everything, but I mean, there was the admin network, which whatever it was called at the time. There was a student branch, but there wasn't something for 30-year-old folks that were not the initial of their career, but yeah, they're just starting out in their career and they haven't really figured it out yet. And at the time I was walking around thinking, what am I supposed to do? Just walk around and say, you look like you're my age. What's going on in your role?
Right.
And so that was the origin story. And that's when I pushed back into NRPA and I did. There was a couple years of a car wash where people are like, you don't need it. We don't need it. And it got to a tipping point that ultimately we were able to get the YPN. But it's incredible that for me, it's incredible to think back and think there's still states that don't have it. When you go to a conference and you see something like the YPN or you participate at the YPN, you don't see it at the state level. Is it an easy push to get across? I heard you said you had some detractors. Were you able to look at the state model and people that had done the national, or look at the national model and people that had done that and say, this is just a next step in the process? Because to be quite honest, we've talked about it on this podcast, it was tough for me to get the state one going, even after the success of the national one. So it is really unique in that way that one doesn't automatically lead to the next.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that there was a ton of pushback. I joke saying that, some of the older folks were like, where's our club? And they can create one anytime they want to, by the way. But
Tom and Jay may create it. Who knows?
Who knows? No, you're only a couple of years older than me, so you're still young. You're fine. But no, we didn't get any crazy pushback. It was just kind of understanding how we would morph into what our state society already offered and how it would be different compared to other things. And we did all of like the logistical pieces, submitting survey results from state people indicating that they wanted the need, kind of push some topics that we could develop over time. But it really kicked off about 2 years ago whenever we submitted for a session presentation at our state conference. And during that's when we had said, hey, here's what we are, here's what we want to do, and here's why it's important to you. And we had a full house of young professionals and some older professionals who just wanted to see what it was kind of about. And we had an incredible outpour of people in that moment, literally saying that they felt connected and that they felt heard and they felt seen. And at that point, it was like, oh, this is a thing. Like, this is not going to go away. After that conference session, we just kind of followed suit and we were persistent with creating a schedule and just trying to engage people on that level. And once there was a good crew of us that supported it, at that point, I don't really think anyone can say no because it was already there,
Just to add to that too, and just get a little more in depth on what you're doing or what that group has done with the YPN at the NRPA level. I think over time, some of the initiatives that we've been a part of was providing a space for young professionals to submit articles in NRPA magazine or Parks and Rec magazine. The 30 under 30 came out of an initiative from one of our colleagues at the YPN. We've also just advocated for young professionals, and of course the monthly meetings, right? So I know there was a time where we would just have general meetings and then mix those in with a presenter or a topic of interest, a roundtable, whatever it may be. What are some other ways that you're engaging? You mentioned engage those young professionals to make them feel connected, to make them feel like they have a home. What are some of the ways that you did that with Virginia?
I guess one of the bigger branches is making sure that we as the network has a space at our annual conference. And so we are continuously looking to add a session, just talking about state initiatives, how to be involved with YPN, but then also using that as a team building experience for people in the room. So we ask that our session is like one of the first ones so that young professionals can meet during that space and then know each other throughout that piece. Doing more social events. And then we also, based on the Academy's mentor-mentee program, we launched our first mentor-mentee program through YPN as well. And it was a really great success. We had over 40 pairings of people throughout the state. And now it's become a staple. And so we're looking at some evaluation methods for that so we can just build the program. But at this point, the leadership within VRPS, the Virginia Recreation and Park Society, is taking it and moving with it as well. So it's being supported on a really big level and it's not going to go away. Our monthly meetings And then we're looking to create some social opportunities as well, just so that a way we can gauge different parts of the state. And while we may not all be able to be there, then members that are from across the state can do something within that respected area. So still starting small. But one of the things I thought was really cool that Katie brought in from the model of NRPA's YPN. So Shane, to your point earlier, Katie's experience with NRPA's YPN is absolutely incredible. So in developing our program, we didn't want it to exactly mirror NRPA. We wanted to create our own spin based on the needs that we assessed. But she had introduced the catalog where we are highlighting people, YPN, throughout the state of Virginia. And we had a really great success with that too. And then it was like, oh, I didn't know about that. So can I get on it next time? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So just little things.
Tom, I can't think when we did that. Was that the second or third year?
It was the second and third year. And it's AJ, some of the initiatives that you just brought up just bring back some really great memories. And when I originally spoke about 4 or 5 of those initiatives that we were part of, you sparked so many others. And I'm just so glad we're having this conversation for not just for young professionals, but of course, any young professional who listens, or the one that listens to this podcast. When you talk about that at the national level, it's just become so special, prior to conference, putting them, and I think that's kind of almost where the impetus for the 30 under 30 came from was, we would just highlight who's going to the conference. If you're under 35 years old, you're considered a young professional. Who's going? Send us a bio, send us a picture, and then we would get that publication that we just kind of self-made. Nothing really special about it at the time, right? Someone would develop it on Publisher or whatever they were using.
It came off our journal. We actually for a year had a YPN, an actual young professional journal.
So it was right on the back end of that, right? That episode. So for those of you out there who are young professionals. for those out there looking to go to the NRPA conference, this is a great, hopefully they have it at your state level, but at a national level. And Shane, to your point earlier, how do I approach someone? Well, now, obviously NRPA adopted the badges off of that, right? So yellow might have been young professional or student, orange young professional,
whatever it was,
whatever it is. And so what Katie and your team has done over the last few years for the conference itself, putting out an actual website, creating a small website for young professionals to check out and see every session that might apply to young professionals, every social opportunity, every gathering. The retreat that we have at the beginning sounds very familiar, AJ, to what you're doing in Virginia at your state conference. Just a way to get people in the room at the very beginning. It's a little awkward, right? You don't know anybody, and by the end of those 2 hours, hopefully you've made a friend if you're new to the space. So I really love to hear all that you're doing with Virginia. It's brings me back to memory lane.
It's so much better than what we offered to.
Yes, much better.
So much better.
Well, and like you mentioned it earlier with being uncomfortable, and obviously in your circumstance that you were mentioning it, it's a positive thing because you were growing from it, and it's, it makes you become a better leader. But it can be a daunting task to go to conference for the first time. You don't know anybody. You're going in as a young professional, but you look at that publication, you see names, you see faces, you go to the retreat. It's like, oh, I recognize that name, that face. So, I mean, it's going to put you at ease, or hopefully meant to put you at ease so that you can walk into a room and at least see some familiar faces that can strike up an easier conversation.
Definitely.
Well, I'm going to switch paths a little bit. And I know we've had some great conversations about young professionals, but I want to dive into like what you're doing in Virginia, the agency you work for, some of your history. And I know, you've worked for a few different agencies now, and they've grown like over the time, not just in your responsibility, but the size of them. And I'm very curious to get your take on that, because looking at, your resume, you started with an agency that serves about 18,000 people. Then it went up to a little over 20,000. And now you're in a very large agency that, has a population over 300,000. So how is that, not just your role changed, but how has serving a larger population changed either how you approach the programs that you manage, or how has that approached your leadership style in what you're doing for your agency?
That's a loaded question. Here we go. When I initially started my career in Parks and Recreation, I came into it by trade of being a recreational therapist. And so I've been a rec therapist now for a little over 10 years. And as weird as it is, I think that there was still moments where we as rec therapists were trying to figure out our roles within Parks and Recreation, even though it wasn't that long ago. And so when I came into Colonial Heights, which there's nothing but love for the past communities I've worked in because we did great efforts. And so Colonial Heights was my first experience where they took a chance on me. It took me 3 tries to get in. I joke about it all the time. But as a rec therapist, we were trying to figure out, okay, do we do community programs? Do we do general stuff? Like, do I do special events? And then it turned into me kind of doing all of that within that community. And then it was, okay, well, what are we doing for our disability populations? We're not doing anything. There's no local programs. There might be Special Olympics, but outside of that, there really wasn't much. And so I developed the first ever program for Colonial Heights, the Therapeutic Recreation Program. It still meets weekly. It's still growing. The current coordinator is doing amazing things with it. And I kind of felt like I got to a cap. Went to Hopewell, got to experience a lot of new things, worked with the school systems, developed TR in our local Head Start program, really started all of these initiatives while still doing summer camps. But then I still got to my cap. And I feel like I got to my cap because there wasn't but so many things I could be involved in that I really wanted to grow myself with. And I never thought I would go to a locality that was this large because there's so many hands in the pot. You know what I mean? I'm used to a small team of like 4 or 5 people. But now being a part of this team, some of the biggest things that I sought after and actively try to be a part of, one is figuring out how they do CAPRA stuff. I never really knew much about the accreditation process, let alone the requirements. And so Henrico is vested with that. And then, the other part is looking to build programs, giving input on ADA recommendations or like inclusive pieces that we can add to it. And then having more money, obviously, that's great. Having more facility space. So now I do multiple TR programs out of all of our major buildings, which we have about 4 major systems that we work out of. And so I'm all over the county trying to do that. And then getting a chance to redevelop policy for our inclusion model and our practices. And so whenever I was hired, it was with the contingency of, hey, we really want you to redevelop these areas and put your spin on it, and then see how it can grow. So it's been an interesting ride. I've had my moments of, oh my gosh, like I have to get approval from how many people to do this, but that's okay. To, wow, we do have so much money. I don't know how to spend it because I've never really been used to certain things like that. But then from a programmatic standpoint, there is just so much potential because people, when they look at a space like Henrico, it's very resourceful. And so they want to partner with you. They want to do programming efforts. And that's a little bit different because I had to kind of not beg in smaller localities, but I really, really had to prove my worth with the program compared to people wanting just to come and be in our space.
We've talked a lot recently with rec therapy folks, professionals, and we've had some really cool conversations. I kind of want to ask you some of the same questions, we asked them in some ways, which is the one I've asked a couple different times now is we've seen what a participant in that program, in those programs, what the profile of that person really evolved. Like the way I've mentioned it on previous podcasts is when you thought about someone with autism, you thought about Rain Man. That was the only thing you knew is like the movie or whatever. That was what autism was, and now you have people self-identifying as being on the spectrum, and it's a superpower for people in business. And they say things like Elon Musk is on the spectrum and all this stuff. And so how has a population that has both maybe embraced the recreational therapy aspects of what y'all can provide, because you talked about when you first came into rec, you kind of had to figure out what your space was. How has the population growing in their acceptance of those programs and the population growing in their acceptance of maybe they're on the spectrum or could benefit from some of these programs? How has that affected you as a programmer? Does it put more butts in seats, but then there's more eyes on your programming, and then it's not as isolated. If it wasn't a big event or whatever, there was only a couple people showed up, it's no big deal. Now it's a huger event. What type of stress has that put on any type of programming or coordination for y'all?
So I think that we're in a really interesting stage when it comes to specialized programs like therapeutic rec versus just typical registration-based classes. And what we're finding now is that a lot of our participants who participate in TR programs now feel, and I say empowered in every facet, but feel empowered to be able to register for typical classes. So they're not necessarily adaptive by nature just because they don't, I guess the title of TR puts a different spin on things. But what I've found is that we have a really large population of people who look in our program guide specifically for therapeutic recreation programs, whether it be, societal things that they've gone through with trauma, or if it is just an older population looking for programming and they need something that's more specialized. But then we also have this new age group of people who are looking at our entire program guide, and they don't just want to do TR programs because why should they? They should have the right to do anything. And so now a lot of our programmers are seeing a rise in individuals with various disabilities coming into their classes. And so while, yes, I manage TR, we also had to redevelop how we did training efforts for staff for participants who are coming into their programs.
That's fascinating, because in some
yeah.
ways I don't know if I've come to this thought process with any of the previous rec therapists we've had on this podcast, but I mean, in some ways it almost makes me think a true rec therapist would love to see their job never need to exist. Like wouldn't the most idealistic world be a world where everyone can just go and register for any class and they always have access and all the accommodations happen and there was never a need? Or when
It was
you
truly
reach
inclusive.
right, when you reach the nirvana of whatever it is you think of when you think of the perfect Parks and Rec offering, you almost wonder, like, do you need a rec therapist, or do you need a rec therapist that only does rec therapy programs? Or maybe they're consulting and pushing on the back end to make sure everything's inclusive, but you almost want something that is so inclusive that anyone feels like they can take that class, go into that building, participate in that thing, with ever having to feel like they have to have a staff member potentially make it something for them.
Yeah, well, we talked about that with Mary too. And I asked the question, or we talked about, is there any way you see in the future the majors, right? Or the certification, not necessarily going away, but to Shane's point, why are we looking and battling being able to offer these programs with accommodations? And it's because the people that we're getting out of a rec management standpoint don't have the training. And we have to then go out, smaller agencies like myself have to go out and get specialists to do or perform the training, because that's something that hasn't been ingrained in them. And so that I like that thought, Shane. And maybe just a follow-up question, AJ, do you see, therapeutic recreation being something that, I mean, it seems like it would make sense that it goes into your rec management training or your major or your education. And how could that work? Is that something that would potentially be a success?
I never want to say that the space is going to outgrow rec therapy, because I think there is a very defined role for it, especially when you're doing true like evidence-based practice and intervention types of therapy. But even with my role, it's kind of changed to where if you didn't have a class that at least talked about adaptive practices, implementing modifications, or inclusive strategies, I think that that's where you're lacking now. So yes, by trade, I'm a recreational therapist, but I've encountered so many people that aren't rec therapists, but have other types of certifications or class-based knowledge, where they've been able just to learn about inclusive practices. And I think that that's a part that is lacking, is that, we have really incredible people coming into the workforce, but they may have one class in college that talked about inclusivity and what that means. And really there's not always good ways to apply it to your work. And so with Henrico, another part of what I do is I also oversee all of our inclusion requests for any typical registration-based program. So if somebody is asking for modifications, I work with the family one-to-one, and then I work with the programmer or the facilitator putting on the class. And then we figure out what can reasonably be modified for that program. Even though Henrico County is big and large, it's just me running this division. And so I can't offer a one-to-one service, but what I can do is train our staff with individualized attention for these participants that are coming in. Or on like the bigger scale, we did a really big needs assessment when I first came in, and I was like, in order for me to change it, I kind of have to see how people view rec therapy and inclusion, and do they think it's the same thing? Because it's not exactly the same thing. And so once we were able to capture some data about how staff wanted to grow within the field, we developed a training series. And I developed a training series that talked about some of these gap areas. And it's been an incredible journey to see people be more open to, hey, a group home of 6 people just showed up. What are we going to do? So it's an interesting space.
We had that exact situation happen at a dinner with the Easter Bunny where we had bingo afterwards. And a group home showed up after the dinner. They showed up just for the bingo portion. We didn't advertise it that way. We have no idea how, probably one of the group home staff probably saw bingo, and that's maybe a favorite activity. And honestly, that was, we did our best. It caught people off guard. Right. And so that would be maybe a question, just a simple question for you. So what you do, and those that you oversee that are programmers, you have that training, and it's great to have someone like you there to really ingrain that into their brains and teach. The ones that you're hiring, are they primary recreation management majors, or are we talking you're getting all types of individuals coming from all, just generally maybe rec management, and then you're just putting that into it? Or are you generally seeing those who come from a therapeutic recreation background?
And maybe I should have clarified. So on a work chart, I am a rec coordinator. I am one of, your lower level people doing programming. And so when I do these trainings, they are for all stages of our department. So all of our management staff, our park services staff are able to come, our programmers are able, our fitness crew. And so I guess I'm not really hiring outside of summer camps, which is a whole different ballgame for me, because I manage inclusion services and medication during camps. And so when it comes to the training efforts for our staff here, we're all at the same level, so to speak. And their backgrounds are vastly different. I mean, everyone from no one having a degree to people having a degree in psychology or in masters in, parks administration. So, I mean, yeah, the knowledge base is very wide with that.
Okay, so you're equipping them with that institutional knowledge that you have, or that your agency basically is putting forth in your mission to try to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I wish we had one of you around.
Well, I appreciate that too.
Shane said something a couple minutes ago that made me think of outside of programming. He made a comment about, in a perfect world, maybe all of our programs would be completely inclusive and everyone could be together. It made me think of, we're actually right now developing our first fully accessible playground in one of our parks. And it's been an amazing process. We have a couple focus groups that have been involved with the community to make sure that we're meeting their needs of, different amenities and different features. Are you involved, or have you been involved from like the park side? Has there ever been a conversation in any of your agencies that says, hey, we're developing this new park or this new amenity, like we need to make sure that it is accessible or inclusive for more families? And if you haven't, like, what can we do to get more therapeutic staff at that table to make those conversations happen?
So legitimately, in my 8 years of experience, I've never been a part of that process. And it's not because of the lack of efforts on any agency. I mean, working for smaller agencies, we're only developing but so many parks in a given period of time. But coming into Henrico, I mean, we have a park planning team. We have sections of teams that are really defined. And so here recently, I kind of just on a whim, like went to our park planners and was like, hey, I really want to learn about this process. And I also know that you do ADA transition plans. Can I kind of shadow you? And I think that they were a little dumbfounded because it was like, no one's ever asked. I'm like, well, eventually I know I'm going to go out of a programming role. And so I want to be equipped with the thought process of not always having the answers, but being able to facilitate a conversation with that. So I would love to be more involved, but I think it's going to be truly based on my efforts of like my own outreach. Yes,
Yeah.
I get asked questions about a ramp or like, the size of certain things, or, do you think that we should have automatic buttons outside of certain buildings? But like outside of that, I've never really been privy to the conversation. But now I'm putting myself in the room. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different.
That's incredible. And that's what we talked about a little earlier, which is this career is of your own making. You only have really
Right.
you got 20 to 30 years to make an impact. You got 20 to 30 years to really do something that you can look back over your next, hopefully 20 or 30 years of retirement and really be proud of in some way. You know what I mean? And I love that you're just inserting yourself in those spaces, because Jay's absolutely right. I know anecdotally, at least, that there are more people that are taking clients out there to our park system than I've ever seen before. And I don't know if that started in COVID and it just became so much more convenient that muscle memory was there and it stayed, or if the places that they were going to were offering a better option, or those places shut down. But you see folks, caregivers in a lot of ways, people that are some sort of part-time or full-time rec therapists in a private world working one-on-one with clients, and you see them in our park system, and in the absence of walking up to every one of them individually and interrupting their work to say, what could we do better here? It'd be great to take advantage. I, like Tom, don't have a rec therapy person on staff, and we're working through our master plan. It highlighted we needed that, and we're working on trying to correct that. But I love that you're just inserting yourself. What a great value it's going to be to the planners as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Shane, something to that, and this is something I never thought of until I got into this position here, but I am working, and it's a slow pace, but I'm working in different sections of the department outside of programming to look at how we can highlight some of our accessible features. And I had an occupational therapist and a physical therapist from VCU reach out to me saying, hey, I have some clients that have autism, and when we go on your mobile app, we really look for X, Y, and Z because of different ability levels that they have. We look to see if your parks have enclosed fences. We look to see, is it wood chipped? Is it, what does the parking lot look like? And it really hit me in such a way of like, oh wow, like this isn't just a rec therapy type of thing, but it's an accessibility talk that I don't think that a lot of people are looking at. And when I was like, oh, the parking lot, that's a really great segue, because I'm like, okay, the experience starts in the parking lot. What is that going to be like from the time you get into your parking lot to when you're walking to that park, or when you're doing, some of those activities? And so what I was trying to do was figure out from their perspective of when they're taking clients, what types of things can we add to our website or our mobile app that'll highlight some of those experiences that they're looking for.
It's almost like when you go to a restaurant and they have, it's Tex-Mex. Let's say you go to a Tex-Mex restaurant, because I'm down here in Texas, and they have a little jalapeno pepper next to whatever you're ordering. You're like, oh, that's spicy. It'd almost be cool to have like a rec therapist approved, like some sort of thing that lets people know, oh, this is an AJ approved park or whatever. I love that. Okay, we've got bits. I don't know if you've listened to this show. We've got bits, but before we get to the bits, because this episode's been going great, really quick. I have one more at least question to ask you before we get to our little zany stuff. I recently saw that there was a Women in Parks. Y'all had like an in-person meeting, and you seemed heavily involved in it. Katie Keller is someone that we're close with and was on one of our first episode. And we followed that, Tom, Jay, and I at the time, just seeing that movement. Man, that movement, you want to talk about nothing compared to like a wildfire as far as just it taking and just going like that Women in Parks movement. Like it was needed, not like a wildflower's needed, not fires needed, but it was quick, and you couldn't, it was just gone, right? It was something that was
Right.
needed and it filled a spot and it just took off. But I see it's starting to be something that it isn't just a movement, which is great because it's great to see the evolution of anything. And now looks like you're doing some programming and some in-person stuff. And I don't know if I'd always seen that before. Y'all haven't let me in yet, so I can't verify everything. But
You can make a Mize group.
Yeah.
You're good.
there we go. We're getting, but talk to us a little bit about the growth of that because
Sure.
that's really cool.
Yeah, so the leadership is in my sense really stemming from Lakita. She's been a great mentor with me, and this was even before my involvement with WePAR. And so when we were looking at kind of building a leadership summit, I was asked to be a part of it. I didn't feel like I knew I wasn't worthy enough to be at the table. And I just remember being like, okay, Jay, like we got this, I do this, I do this. There's a really great team. And, Lakita had really cultivated a source of just natural positive energy going into this. And then collectively, we worked over the last year to put on the first leadership summit, and we do aim to make it an inaugural thing. And so, be on the lookout for future stuff. But yeah, we brought it together through, partnerships with Norfolk for the facility space. And then, Civic Plus being some of the bigger sponsors for it. And I mean, we brought it together and I get really giddy still thinking about it because it was just an incredible experience to be with women who, I don't know, maybe for one of the first times you just didn't feel judged being in a room, and that I think is just so powerful. And we put it on and about 100 attendees or so. And so it was manageable. It was intimate. It was a really great setting aesthetically as well. The building was beautiful. The food was great. And yeah. And so now the movement, I think, has always been there. But after that and like feeling it just.
Was that the first?
It was.
The first time? Okay.
Yeah. Now it just feels different. I mean, and the platform has over 10,000 followers. And so, I mean,
awesome.
Typically when I go to put out something for like Rec News, or if I have a question, yes, I definitely utilize an NRPA in the, connecting communities and stuff. But WePAR is one of those spots where I'm like, oh, bet I'm going to have this on here and I'm going to see what everyone is saying. So yeah, it's a powerhouse and I love being a part of it because I know what it gives me. So I want to give it back.
That's cool.
WePAR is amazing. And I think I shared a story that I'll spare everybody, but I shared a story when Katie was there, just that really set well with me of how big it was. But we've got to look into partnering with them. And when we have people like AJ on, I don't know if they share our podcast or not, but I can guarantee that a lot of those members want to hear what you had to say today throughout this entire conversation. So guys, just something to put on our checklist.
Well, and AJ's not going to do it, but I'm going to do it for her because she deserves to be highlighted. During that Women in Park and Recreation Summit that they had, she was actually awarded the Triple Threat Award, which highlighted personal, professional, and academic efforts. So awesome. Kudos to
Congrats.
The achievements that you've had. Because I
sounds
actually
like Jay did sneak in.
Yeah.
How did you know this? How do you know these inside?
It's on her resume. Listen, I had her resume to do the intro, but I couldn't use that because I didn't want to give it away that it was a female. So I had to, even though he made the guess within 2 guesses. So
she was the only person I knew of that had been involved in Clemson, had been talked about recently. And when we're doing these pick'em, Tom goes and takes about half the spots from the very beginning every season. He just fills them all up. And then me and Jay are rifling through, but I kind of strategic with mine. And Jay likes to hear people talked about in these types of conversations, and then reached out. So when I heard Clemson and when I heard the 30 under 30, and I know that you'd been talked about a couple times, I threw it out there. Got lucky.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was funny. I was talking to my daughter this morning. I have 3 kids at home, if you didn't know. I was talking to her and I was like, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast today. And she was like, what? Giving me the side eye. And I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool. We're going to be talking about Parks and Rec stuff. And she was, I think I think she was so excited for me. She just didn't know how to express it in the moment.
Little future YPAR member there.
I
maybe.
know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get her involved in little bits, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna be doing this, and she was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and I was like, okay,
That's
yeah,
a great story. How old is she?
yeah. So my daughter, she's 12. She'll be
Okay.
13 in
Okay.
July. My dear
Going on
goodness.
20 or whatever.
Yes, and yeah, my son is 9, and then our tiniest is 4. So
Tom's
So
got 2 kids, but you can only ask him about one. He doesn't know the other one very well.
That's not true. That's not true.
Jack is the rising star of the family.
I've got a 4 and a 2-year-old. So
Okay.
it's so what are their names just for our listeners?
Yeah, we have Alana, Jaden, and then Ashton.
That sounds
Alana's the
sounds like a
oldest?
lot of fun.
Alana's the oldest.
What's up, Ilana? Your mom
I
did
know.
fine on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, hey, we always, as Shane said, we have a couple of things we like to get through, and we do a little bit of a rapid fire towards the end of
Okay.
our episodes. So we're going to throw out some quick hitters for you, and first thing that comes to mind. So first one may or may not be an easy one for you, but what has been your most rewarding achievement so far in your career?
Other than the podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
other
yeah,
than
this has got to be
I'm
top of
adding
the
it to
list.
my resume. Okay. No, I think TR is obviously extremely big in my heart, but to the flip side of that is being able to educate people about it. I've had an incredible ride with being able to teach young people about the benefits of inclusive practices, and they've changed their outlook on different things in life and their majors in school. And I think that's a big enough thank you for anything. So that was one of the big ones.
So you're a former extern, right?
Yep.
Okay, so American Academy Park and Recreation Administrators, you are a former extern, which is an amazing experience, one that I felt like was one of the best I've had in my professional career. In your experience during your externship, and we just had a recent recipient on our show. So Jeff, Shane,
Yep.
This is silly, but can you pronounce Jeff's last name for us?
Ashay.
Ashay. Okay,
Jeff
so
Ashay.
Jeff Ashay, he is a recipient this year. What would be the one piece of advice you have for those who are going to be receiving that or going through the externship experience this year?
So that was also my first NRPA conference. So it was a whole experience. Michael Ann was my mentor. She is absolutely incredible. And I remember in the very beginning, and I think people take it for granted when you look at connections that can be made through others, but she was like, who are the people that you really want to have a seat at the table with, and who do you want to meet? And I fangirled so hard over Jody Adams. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I remember saying that, and she was like, okay, I'm going to make that happen for you. And if I can do anything, is I will prompt the initial conversation and I will make the introduction, and then you got it from there. And that, to me, I thought of the experience. She made those connections. And at first I could have been like, I don't know, I just want to be a part of the experience. But no, like if you have people, name drop them and they will find a way to connect you to it. So definitely take advantage.
Good advice. And Jody's awesome.
We fangirled over Jody during our podcast.
Yes.
We did.
Yeah, that was a great conversation.
So I did get to meet, that's where I met you.
Yep.
Chris Noons introduced me to you. Y'all were talking, and he was like, this AJ, she's going to be a force in this industry, and you got to make sure you remember. So maybe that's why I screamed your name like I did. When I met you, you're tatted up.
Yeah.
AJ's tough. Now she likes
Oh,
to,
so
I'm just a
tough.
coordinator and I don't deserve this or that, but let's, if we go off a checklist of things, she helped start her state YPN. She's super, Haley already gave her all of her roses for all the work that she did with the LDN. And then obviously she's a triple threat in YPAR. So I don't think you have a lot of reason to be humble. I think you're killing it out there, but
Thank you.
I know Pete, and I'm not tatted. I don't know if Tom and Jay are. Do either of y'all have tattoos?
What do you think?
I would say no.
Okay. Jay, what do you think? You think I got a tattoo?
I don't think so.
He's got a cute one on his ankle, I bet.
I can see a little Mickey Mouse emblem on his.
On his butt cheek.
Oh man, no.
Do you have one?
I'm just gonna leave it up to the imagination of the listeners now.
Okay. But people that get tattoos always have one that really connects to them, or more than one, but at least one that really connects to them some way. What of your tattoos is one that really connects with you?
Well, I have a sleeve, so I don't know. In some fashion, I don't know. They're all about growth. And I think that in times like, sometimes it's just easier to be humble because I don't want to hear certain things without feeling like there's like this boastfulness presence or whatever. But I know where I came from, and I know what I've done in my life, and I know what I want to do. And I think that in times of tough moments, it's a subtle reminder of everything that I've gone through. And I always say that my tattoos are my favorite accessory. So in moments where I can show it off, I definitely do, for job interviews, for presentations. Like, it's very much a staple. So no, there's not just one. They're all creative. They're all great, so.
Cool.
Can I ask one more, Jay? We going another round, or?
I was gonna do another round, man. We can all do one more.
Let's go.
Go ahead, Jay. I'm ready.
Outside of work, what is a ideal Saturday morning? What is AJ waking up and doing on a Saturday?
Oh my God, so funny. Okay. So, ideal Saturday morning. Well, it depends. So my partner, or my fiance, he is a dual paramedic firefighter. And so he is on a 24-hour on, 48-hour off schedule. So if he's not home, the kids and we all cuddle up on the couch. I have my coffee, and during the coffee, they know, okay, I can be on electronics. We have scheduled electronics. We are that family. Okay. They're not on it all the time. Okay. So they know they can be on their electronics while mom is having a cup of coffee, and they're having like a little tiny snack or, whatever. But yeah, so that's how we first start. And then at that point, it is the big breakfast. I say big. Lord forbid, I cannot cook to save my life. So I got a few things I can go to. It's the breakfast, and then it's some way to be outside. I got 3 kids in 3 different age brackets, so I like to test out a lot of different program types on them. But yeah, so that's typically that piece. If my fiance, is at home, then I feel this extra surge of, let's do all these activities. I got all these ideas. I just need you to be in the room to help monitor, you know what I mean? All the little behaviors. And so that's the ideal when he's home too.
Good times.
I was going to ask a very similar question. So I was, basically we talk about work-life balance and life-work balance, all that. Aside from your family, right? Because I get that, aside from being a mom and being a part of a family, what does AJ do to disconnect?
Oh, that, I'm gonna be super honest. I think I'm still trying to figure out that balance. So I just turned 33, and I feel incredibly motivated to just be a super mom, be a super partner, but then I'm also still wanting things for myself. And myself stuff really kind of just relies on like education. When I went through my master's program, I fell in love with education. I didn't think I would, but yeah, I'm looking up some practice. I'm thinking about programs. So like, I don't really think it stops in my brain, but it's just something that like I'm naturally driven to be a part of. So yeah, I mean, heck, we were just talking about doctoral programs on the last thing I was looking at. So I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the balance, and I don't know if I officially have hobbies. I have hobbies that I've had to learn because of my children, and I am enjoying those.
Sure.
Yeah. So
that's a very honest answer.
Excluding any podcast hosts you've recently met.
Oh, joy.
What is your dream lunch with 3 other Park and Rec professionals?
My dream lunch.
It's a 4-top table. It's you and 3 other people. Who are you bringing? Past or present?
Who am I bringing?
Yeah, he left that open. I was just gonna give you a suggestion. Just pick a food, because he didn't say that at first.
No. I want to know who you're bringing. You can tell us the food too, but past or present, what Park and Rec professionals you inviting to the lunch?
Oh my Lanta. Um, well, I gotta give it to my number one Parks and Rec boss, Matt Sproul. He's also he does a lot of things for VRPS, incredible mentor. So he would definitely be on one. My YPN best friend, Emmy. And then now I'm like, okay, what big wig can I bring to the table? Obviously, it's gotta be Jody Adams.
Jody Adams.
Okay?
That's a great guess for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
And what
So
are y'all
that's-
eating?
I want a side of some greasy pizza with good ranch dressing. I want a few
Oh, wow.
tacos. I want a margarita, maybe some cheese sticks, like all of the gluttonous types.
Y'all are hanging out for a while.
So
You
we
know.
need to go back and ask everybody that we asked that question about their meal, because I love that secondary piece.
Yes.
And
You can't
your
just have
menu,
one thing.
your menu's amazing.
Thank you, dear. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we ever get through an episode without talking about food in some
Food.
capacity.
Mhm.
We
I
have
mean,
to talk food and food.
you called out Shane for like being this wolf eating meat. So I mean, I think that was the first piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really all I eat, unfortunately.
Egg and eggs, but that's meat too, I guess, right? So
That's right.
It's true though. I don't know anyone that eats more meat or just meat like he does. So it's impressive.
it's pretty wild.
I eat steak and eggs every day at lunch, and I eat meat sticks. I eat a little bit of kefir sometimes for dinner. That Vietnamese place I've been going to, I even have them double the meat on this dish I can't even mention.
Pull out the sprouts, pull out the broccoli, double the meat.
Yes.
if I could.
Well,
but
wait. If you eat this one particular meat, you can come and join me at the table. Okay.
what meat?
So one of my favorites, because I grew up in Hawaii, is Spam.
Oh wow.
Do you
Wow.
you don't even like Spam, do you? I can
I've
see it right on your
never
face.
been so desperate to try it.
Oh my, it's a delicacy, okay?
it?
All right,
It's in
can
a
you
can.
just tell us how to prepare it? Is it just
in a
out of the
can.
can, or do you fry it? Is there
No,
something?
we're civilized, okay? So we take it out of the can.
Okay.
You can cut it in pretty cubes. You can
The
cut
fact
it
that
in
you
nice
said
thin
we're
slices.
civilized, and the next thing you said is we take it out of the can. Quite the contradiction.
And then, okay, so then we cut it in cubes, we cut it in slices, and then we fry it. And I'm not talking about like deep fried in oil. We put it on a pan.
So what does it
you
taste
know.
like? I'm a meat
It tastes
eater.
like-
What,
Mm.
Shane? It tastes like blank.
Okay.
It closely resembles blank.
Closer, in my mind, it closely resembles maybe like a bacon corned beef hash kind of
Okay.
thing.
I'm not
Yeah.
as scared of that. Maybe it's the name
Maybe-
I have a problem with. Shouldn't have called it spam.
Maybe
They
we
call
can
it
find.
Shane. I don't know.
There you go.
We'll have to find a breakfast joint in Atlanta that sells Spam.
Yes,
And we'll do
Just put it with your
tacos.
eggs.
Yeah,
All right.
that's right.
I'm down.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, AJ, this has been phenomenal. As always, it's great conversation. And
First spam conversation we've ever had.
Yeah.
we
ever,
talked about
probably first.
Spam.
Maybe
Yes.
first and only.
Yeah. Until next time, when we actually have it, maybe we'll have him test it live
Oh,
in an episode.
could you imagine?
And just
I'm
see how that
expecting a
goes.
selfie of him making spam.
I don't
So-
want to keep going on this spam train, but I need to know: is it just by itself after you fry it, or do you put it on thing?
Oh,
Did you put it
I
on
mean,
something?
there's many things. You can put it with like a scoop of white rice.
Okay.
You can do like a spam sandwich with some cheese. I put ranch on everything, so there's gonna be a little ranch, you know. You can eat it with your eggs as well.
Okay.
It might be better than the
Possibilities are
meal.
endless.
It might be better than the meal Jane Addams offered us, at least in my preference. So
No, come on.
I can't remember what hers was, but it wasn't spam. It was some boiled fish or something. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was not Spam.
Awesome.
AJ, thank you for joining us. This has been fantastic. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. And you just continue to impress with so many people, and you're just doing awesome things up there in Virginia, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in Atlanta.
All right. I appreciate your time, guys.
See ya.
Thanks, AJ. Bye-bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
coming. Spam.
The spam conversation.
Spam.
I bet we can find some spam in Atlanta.
Oh, I think we definitely can.
I mean,
for
you
sure.
can find it anywhere, I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm talking
I'm
about
talking
someone
about
that's
in
making
a
it.
restaurant.
Oh, okay. Hey, great poll, Jay. That's another one to cross off my future ask list.
Great. Yeah. I actually had her on my list just because I heard her name in some of our things.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be an interesting person. I think after Haley talked about her.
Yeah, I've talked to her a couple times, and she's very well spoken
Yeah.
and has done
Calming.
a lot. Just
I
great
bet she's a
conversation.
galvanizer. I bet she's a galvanizer. Like
Yeah.
what were you gonna think?
Or a galvanizer.
Yes, yeah, I know. I said it wrong the first time. Hannah, edit that. No, I don't know her very well. Haven't spoken to her very often, but a long time fan of just looking at the impact she's had and the cool things she's done.
What I was thinking about when she was talking about, and I said, hey, we need one of you around here. We talk about this conversation every once in a while about consulting, and we've known people, Ryan Hegreness has just gone into the consulting world, right? So many of those that we've either had on the show or just that we know in general that have gone that direction. And sometimes, I think what I like to hang my hat on is culture and leadership, and they all sound so vague, to be honest. And this is what AJ does. She can do a lot of that, right? But she's also it's a very specific skill and knowledge base that she has. And, she could take that on the road too, right? Like, could you imagine? She could easily do what she's doing in her agency for a lot of different agencies. So that, I'm very envious of what she has there. She's got a really bright future and endless possibilities. And I will just add one more before the two of you say your wrap up piece. There was a quote today. Shane said, and I quote, I absolutely agree with Jay, or maybe I don't have the quote right. Jay is absolutely right. First time I've ever heard that.
We'll edit this out and we'll edit that out.
Nope.
Don't worry about
No. So I would actually like to get with Hannah and have her send me that so I can just loop it into like all these different conversations whenever I bring something up.
it. When I call you on the phone, it should just say, Jay is right, Jay is right, Jay is right. That's the ringtone.
That'd be awesome. Well, hey, guys,
we can make that into a GIF, man.
Do it. Yes. And him with a picture of eating Spam.
The least used GIF in Northern America.
Yeah. Well,
she was great.
Maybe we have listeners in other countries, so maybe they'll use the GIF in another country.
Yeah, maybe so. Spam might be big there. It's canned meat. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing?
We're expanding our taste buds.
That's not something I do.
We said earlier, we started this episode off with some advice for people, and it was take risks. So
that's true. That's true. Eating meat out of the can.
Try the Spam.
That's for sure.
Well, hey guys, I know what you're doing this weekend. You're going to go out and try Spam for the first time. So let us know how it is. And it's been a pleasure. And thanks, guys. Hope you have a good weekend.
See ya.
Great job.